Hello, my dear friends. In the previous video, we left off at this point where we had two flaps and they were animating right in the middle of the page and their numbers were updating properly. So this is where we left off. Now we would like to design our page based on the airport schematic that we had. So let me quickly share my Adobe XD screen. So this is what we are aiming to go for. We are going to create this kind of design and we would see how the flaps look and how this works. First of all, we have the name of the airport, whichever airport it would be. Then we have arrivals and then we have departures. And then we have these three headings for each item. For arrival, we have flight code, and then from the location from where it is arriving, the flight is arriving, and the time. Similarly, for departure, we have flight code and where it is departing to and the time. So we would implement this in our code. Let's get back to code and let me share my screen. So here we go. Here we are. This is the point where we left off. So first of all, we will need to do some cleanup. So we would just leave these lines. We don't need them, and we don't need the counter anymore. And also we would use this. We don't need this variable. And here for now, we don't need any animation, any single animation right now. So we would just comment it out for the time being. And let's see what do we need. So we also don't need any flap. So we'll just copy one backup because later we want the flap to be generated from JavaScript. So we need to have this markup here for our reference. So let me quickly add that and let's comment it out so that JavaScript doesn't give us weird errors. So this is a backup for our flap and now we can remove them from here. We don't need flaps right now. So first of all, we would need to have some markup. So first of all, let me quickly add the markup for our heading, top heading. So this is our top heading. We have a class of row, and in this row we have just one single heading. In the same way, we would have another class of row, and we would be adding a span, and we would give it the same class of heading, and we would call this arrivals. Similarly, in the very same class, we would add another heading called departures. So we would add the styling for these as well. First of all, let's write our markup. So then we have another class which we will call row. And in this row, now we need two halves of the rows, one half representing items for arrivals, one half representing item for departure. So we would add those. So we would call this class row and we would give it a subclass of inner. So this inner is like covering half of the width of the row. So we would make sure that we add the style as well. And here we would add another heading. We would give it a class of heading. And we would call this code. This is the flight code. And then we would call another two of those. We would make two of those. And if it is arrivals, then we need to know from and time. Similarly, we would add another row, and this one is going to be for departure, and we would change this from to to. So where are we going? Okay, so this is basically our markup for headings. So let's give it the style. So what do we need? We need a row class basically and heading class. So let's give row heading, and there is also a subclass of inner. So let's add those styles. So as we can see that heading has a particular font and its color is white. We might not need to give the color white and its text is center line. Okay, then we have the row. We have the full width of the row has full width and it has gap of 1 em and this is important property justify content space around. This would help us to properly place them in their respective positions, and we have to have width. If for inner, we have width of 50%. So let's go to our browser and let's see how this looks. So let's go there and let's refresh. Now we can see that we have some similar headings as we were as we showed in our Adobe XD. We have top heading, then we have arrivals and departures and code from and time, and then for departures code to and time. Okay, now we go back to our code, and now we would need to think about the area below these headings, which we are going to call flap container. Basically, this is going to be our display, split flap display. So let's call it flap container. And this container would also have a row. And we would give it a class of, sorry, date, class of row. So each container must have a row. Then this row must be broken down into two halves. First half would be called div and class of row half. So this is row half. And then in this half row, we have to have three groups. The first one would be for code, the second one would be for time, for location to or from, and the third one would be for time. So first, let's add another div called we create a class of row half group. So we would have this row half group, and we would have three of those. So let's create those 2 and 3. And then we also need to add flap here. So let me quickly grab this and let's add the flap here. We don't need this comment here. So let me give it a correct indentation. This is our flap class. This is one flap. Okay, so we have to know that in our first half, this looks confusing, but let's organize this a little bit. So this one is for flight code. So flight code is going to be of 6 characters long. So let's make them 6. So this is first one, then second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. And similarly, in the second half, we are going to have a location, and location can be of maximum 10 characters. So let's add 6 from what we copied, and then let's add 4 more. So here we add 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now our last one is the time. So let me quickly grab one element. And time is of fixed length also. It has 5 flags. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And let's try to. Okay, so this one is going to be one row, one half of the row. Then we also need to add the second half of the row. So let me quickly copy this row half and I'm just we don't need this markup here, but I'm just adding it so that we know what we are going to code, or we know that how it would look like when we actually create this in JavaScript. So this is just for showing purposes. So let's quickly give the styles to our row half and our row half group. So let me quickly grab the style for those. So let's add this style here. So now we have this these style sets. Let me quickly get back to browser and let's refresh. So now we can see that our this is how our row would look like. So we would add more rows as well. This was just to make sure that our layout is correct. Now we can safely use these classes in our JavaScript to generate some markup. So basically, we have this code, then we have location form, then we have time, and then similarly we have code, location to, and time. So let's now go to our JavaScript and start working on how to make it functional. So let's get back here. And now, first of all, let's remove this complicated mumbo jumbo because we don't need this. We know our classes and we know how to proceed. So let me quickly remove this code. We just need this container and we would manage our code inside the JavaScript. So this is all the markup that we are going to need. Now let's quickly write a function. The first function would be called uh, add flap. So add flap would have some properties. We need to have a parent element in which we want to add this flap. Then we need to also have the character, uh, whichever character we want to add right on the top of flap, flap first and flap second. And we also might need to add a color. If there is no color specified, then it would be white by default. So let's try to add this flap and let me quickly add that code here, flap, add flap. So this is a utility function. It will be very helpful for us. So here we have added this code. As we can see that we create a div called flap. We are basically creating the same structure. Then we have top flap, then we have flap item top, and then we give this character which we imported here. And we also give it the style of color, whichever color it would have. And then we append this to top flap, then new flap. Basically, this new flap, we append that child here. Then we create the bottom half and we append into new flap, and then we add this child to the parent. So this would systematically create multiple flaps. Okay, so we have this, and also now let me talk about the flight data. Where do we get this data? First of all, my initial plan was to get this data from an API, free. There are many free APIs which we can use to get data, and if you provide some parameters to those APIs, these are REST APIs, and there are many public APIs available for us. But unfortunately, I couldn't find a decent enough API to give us very accurate data. This might be, we might revisit this project later and may make it totally automatic. But for our purposes, for presentation purposes, I think we can use some tricks. So I am got I made these two arrays basically to fake some data. These are arrivals and departures. So we have these. There are 20 of each element here. So basically, we won't need 20. We would only need 10 of these at one time. Let me try to explain what I'm trying to achieve here. And also, we would need uh, some variables for our usage. Let me explain them to you as well. Okay, so here we would add some variables. So we have to our animation timer we set to 250 milliseconds. In our CSS, we have set it to 0.5. So let's make it 0.25. Uh, so it's a little bit faster because there are multiple flags. Now we need some speed on them as well. And this array, random arrivals and random departure would, as you have guessed, hold random arrival times and departure times, departure items from these arrays. So let me quickly write a utility function to create a random array out of those. So let me quickly add this. So here we are. This is a function which basically gets an array as input and creates shuffles that array, and then we it returns an array of our required size. So we would use random arrivals and departures to get a random rows from this array, these two arrays. So this is, and also we need some other variables. First of all, we need some uh, properties. Suppose we want to specify the colors uh, of the flight, rival flight color code, rival time color code, and departure flight and departure time color code. We can specify those as well. For now, they're white, but we might need to change them later. And then we also need one function which is going to display our flapboard. So let me quickly add that function. This function would display a split code. This here we would add our arrivals and departures. We would select random arrivals and departure. So here we are. We have maximum array length of 10. So we would select randomly 10 elements from each array and make a random array, random arrivals and random departures. And then we would go and we would select our flap container, and we would first of all clear that whatever is inside that container, we would clear it, and then we would run this array, then run this for loop for the maximum number of rows. So suppose we have 10 rows, then we would add 10 rows in this flap container. And we also need this construct schedule row. So let me quickly write that function. So this schedule function would actually create our schedules, basically add the flaps on each row. So let me quickly add that function. And basically what this is doing is, let me quickly go through this function. This function has a parent. Basically, it appends on whatever element we have provided. So we have provided our um, flap container. So this will append a row in this flap container until it is running for the length of the array. So we would run it 10 times and we would add 10 rows. And first of all, it is creating a row. Then it is inside that row, it is creating a row half. Then in this row half, it is creating a half row. So this one, I have named these variables so that we can understand them better. For arrivals, it would create arrival half of the row. Then it would create flight codes. First group is flight codes, and then it would add the flight code. This is basically random arrivals dot code, which is flight code. Let me show that again. It has a code, this code, and then it would go through that code character by character and pass it to add flap function. And then we would also specify the color. For now, it's white. So it would create a flap based on that, and it would give it a color. Then also we need some padding. We For next item, which is the location, which is uh, it creates the same for location flaps. Okay, so we add a div called again row half group, and this one we have named it location flaps for rivals, and we checked its length, and if its length is less than maximum length, this maximum location length is specified here as 9. As an array, indexing is from 0, so 9 make sure that we have 10 characters of location. So maximum characters are 10, and it checks if the length is less than 10. In this condition, if the length is less than 10, then it adds empty flaps. So basically, it's providing a padding, and then it also iterates over the location character by character and add a flap. Similar is for the time. It iterates and add time, and also it does same for departures. So this function when it's ran, it adds different schedules. So let's run this function. So we would just add this function here, and let's see if this works. So let's get back to Dover. and let's hit refresh. So as we can see that we have successfully added a random schedule. This is basically we are getting all everything. So we might need some color because it happens so that we are getting a little bit overlap. So I think we also need to give some gap between these two. So let me quickly adjust that. Let's get back to coding. And let's see in the row, we had row half and row, we might need to provide we might need to provide a gap appropriate for the row. So let me try to resolve this and let's get that. Okay, so I fixed that. Basically, we couldn't use the row because row class was designed for top elements, the heading elements, and they had a limited gap. For row flap, we have added a new class called row flap, and I've just added this class and gave it a gap of 5 em. Now let's see our browser and let's see if it has fixed. So let's refresh, and now we can see that we have cleared the VM between two elements. And also we need to check for one more thing. Our basically our lab container, there also needs to be some gap here because these are very overlapping. So let's try to fix that as well. So here, where is our, okay, so we haven't added the styling for our lab container. So let's quickly get that style. So we have given this style as well. Let's try to see if this changed anything. Let's get let's refresh. Okay, now we can see that it's looking much better. We have our arrivals and departures properly styled. And let me. Okay, so let's do one more thing. Let's give some color to flight codes and times. So let me get back to our code and let's add some color. So these are white. So let me find some nice colors to replace them with. So let's come here and let me find nice colors. So these are the colors which I found by hit and trial. They look a bit nice. So let me show that here. So now our split flap board looks very nice. But there is obviously one thing missing, which is animation. So let's try to animate this. So let me get back to code and let's think about how do we want to animate this. Okay, so here we have so here our first function would come in handy. So let me, but we also have to consider a few things. We need to we need to set the animation for each individual flap. They should start and finish at some different times. And also we need to make sure that our flaps or the text inside flaps is not visible at all the time. So we would combine 2 or 3 techniques to animate it properly. Let me quickly add that code and then I will explain what I mean. So, okay, so let me add this here and let me try to explain this. Okay, so first of all, we have um, okay, so let me check if I have everything that we need. Yes, we have everything we need. Okay, so first of all, this set interval, this function would run at animation timer times 3. which is basically here. Animation time is 250 milliseconds. So this would run at every 750 milliseconds. And what would it do? Let me show that. So this would run at 750 milliseconds, and it would select all the top flap elements, and then create a random delay up to 1 second. And it would, after that random delay, it would animate that flap. So this is for top flap, and similarly for bottom flap. So it would animate top and bottom flaps at different times, and up to 1 second. So it would create some variation. Then this function, and also there is another function which would be which is running at twice the time, which is like 1500 milliseconds. This function would display split board flat board, this one. So this split flat board would clear the current board and add new rows. So randomly it would select new rows, and so it would appear that our flapboard is updating real time. So this is for that effect. And for, lastly, we have this visibility variable, which we would change after a certain amount of time has passed. We would just make all the characters in the flap invisible. So let's see if the combination of these is ran correctly. So it would simulate this flapping effect. It would simulate a random flapping effect. Then the text would disappear and it would reappear again. So this is pretty much it. This is the effect that we were looking for. So it kind of simulates this random flapping and updation of the flight schedule, and it feels like uh, it feels close to that effect that we saw in the video. So I hope you learned something, and I hope I'm able to explain these things. So thank you so much for watching, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and we would meet next time with more interesting stuff.